Hey guys, this is Danny, aka Dangstro. I'm one of the founders of Tekken Rage. It's an organization that used to host tournaments in Virginia, specifically Northern Virginia. I'm making this video about how you can start a Tekken scene locally, and the reason is it's very important. You know, Tekken Tag 2 is not doing as well as everyone thought it was going to be, especially to the general public. Not a lot of people are, hopping on that. And also, Evo numbers are pretty low, and I think that's because a lot of the players, we become lazy, and especially when Tekken Tag 2 was coming out, everyone was so hyped for it. Like, other gamers were hyped for it also, and it's like we're like, yeah, it's just gonna launch off by itself, but it didn't, and it's not going to, not unless a lot of people are more proactive about it. And one way to approach it is to have more local tournaments and a local scene, because after you go to some local tournaments, it's going to make you want to go to, like a larger tournament, and eventually, it's going to get more and more popular. It's debatable. I could debate it myself, but that's one way to think it. Okay. So I made this PowerPoint. All right. Yeah, PowerPoint. It's crazy. So I made this presentation to help you visually, so you can see things as I explain things. Hope you guys enjoy it. All right. So starting a local Tekken scene, a VTR story. Now why? You gotta think, why am I even watching this video? Okay, I'm assuming that if you are watching this video, you are interested in starting a scene locally, and you're like, I'm kind of interested. Let me see what it entails. So you're gonna think, why? Okay, yeah, why do you want to start this scene? Well, for me personally, I would say 3 years ago, I only played Tekken with this one other Tekken player, but then he moved to China for a while, and I wanted to have more competition, and so I sought out some Tekken players through my friend, because my friend used to go to tournaments. Anyways, and turns out there was only maybe 2, maybe 4 players that went out to tournaments. Although they're really good, known as the 3 Good Men, which has Big Word, Millions, and Knock. I don't know if they're really actually known, but anyways. Yeah, so there aren't that many Tekken players that actually went. It was kind of disappointing because, Virginia used to be a pretty big hotspot for Tekken, nationally known, especially during the Tekken Tag 1 days. Thanks to Gin Master Rape. He started VTime, which stands for Virginia Takes Your Money Every Time, but I guess not so much anymore, right? So yeah, those are some reasons why I started VTR. Another reason was around that time I graduated recently, or around the time I graduated, and I wanted some fun project that I could do with some friends that involved teamwork and something that I could do to increase my leadership skills, because after you graduate, you're going to enter the workforce, right? Yeah. So also another reason why you might want to start a scene is tournament support. So if you want to go to tournaments, it's pretty lame if you go by yourself, especially if you're from some area. It's kind of boring to go by yourself. So the more Tekken players there are, the more likely they will go to national or bigger tournaments, and you guys can go in one car, just chill together. It'll be pretty fun, pretty tight. Okay, so things you'll need. There's gonna be 5 things you'll need, and it's not that necessary, but based on the VA Tekken Rage story, it is necessary, or it was. So there's team, right? You're gonna want a team, because you can't do it all on your own. You're gonna want a team. You're going to want resources, both human and non-human resources, like equipment. And obviously human resources is a team. I just said a team. So strategy. You're going to want some type of strategy where you plan things out and you'll be like, alright, this is how we're going to approach things. You're going to want a venue. it's required that this venue is public, okay, not someone's house. You don't want to host you don't want to host tournaments like at someone's house consistently, because that's shady, and you're not going to get new players like that. You're going to need an online presence, and it's easy to build it, yeah. So, and I'm going to be talking about these 5 things more in detail in this presentation. That's what this presentation is basically about. So, team members, right? Well, let me tell you how I asked the other admins of VATR. When it started, I asked Seiko, I asked Nock, and I asked Emmanuel, or aka Millions, right? Okay. And you can see them on the top picture right there, or right. You could see them right there, right? Yeah, and I chose them because like when I started VTR, I didn't go to tournaments. I didn't know any of the players, so I needed some players that knew other players, or that was popular enough, where if they were like, hey, go to this tournament, and then the other players would be like, okay, I will go to that tournament, So for me, the main thing was that network of knowing all the players, so that they could come and go to the tournament, And that's what they were. And they were also very chill, very nice, very friendly, very cool dudes, right? Okay, so the purpose of team members, though, is to have a public sense of security. Meaning, if someone else sees you as an individual only hosting a tournament, there's a lot more things that could go wrong, because it's just one person that's hosting a tournament, especially if you're not well known, They're like, why would I go to this tournament? I don't even know this player. Even if I do know this one player, like, something could go wrong, and I could show up to a venue and no one's there. I could show up to the venue, money gets stolen, I don't know, some crazy stuff, right? So to have a team, it builds that sense of security. So this purpose, the public sense of security, obviously is for the public, right? Another purpose is this purpose, dependable persons, it's more for you as the person that's watching this video, okay? Like, because you can't do everything on your own, it's a pretty big task. You could have a couple people that you could depend on, that you could be like, hey, I really need you to ask these people to come out to the tournament. I really need you to bring your PS3 and your Asus monitor, stuff like that. Something you can depend on. I need you to be on time, Yeah, but why would all these members of your team do this? Well, it's because they're gonna have the same desires and goals as you desire, They themselves are gonna probably want a Tekken scene, like tournaments where people can go to and stuff like that, And you want maybe 2 to 4 members in your team, nothing more. And this really depends on how many how many people enter your tournament. If it's like a 4-man tournament, like every time, yeah, you could just, you yourself can do it. You don't need any help for that. But if it's like a lot more, you might need more help. Your members, like I said, same goals as you, same desires. The members also publicly is viewed as trustworthy, right? And responsible. So this is important to build that bullet point earlier, that public sense of security. Another thing you're going to want your members to be is popular and networkable. Like I said earlier, it'll be good if they are popular, like other players know them, or other players respect them as a player. Because if they are like, hey, come to this tournament, they're like, okay, sure, okay, stuff like that. Moving on, you're going to need resources. You're going to need money, you're going to need equipment. And why do you need money? Main thing for VTR was website. It's not that much also. It's only like $170, maybe for a year or 2. You could find different deals. A good website you could go to is hostmonster.com or hostgator.com. Yeah. You also need money to rent out venue. VATR, we hosted tournaments at a university, George Mason University, and the room that we usually held tournaments at, it only costed $200. But there's different ways. You could get it for free if you know someone, or if you're a part of a recognized student organization within that community or that university. You could get it for free. You also need equipment, okay? Like PS3. Okay, this is Tekken, so screw Xbox, okay? You're gonna need PS3s, you're gonna need sync cables, maybe extra controllers, because noobs, they don't bring their own pads, you know. More experienced players, they bring their own because, you know, they like the feel, obviously. But anyways, it'll be good to have an Xbox to PS3 converter, because that just gives the option of Xbox players to come to your tournaments. You know, it makes sense, common sense, right? Also, you're gonna want stream equipment. It's not really required, but it's becoming required now, and it's always good, you know. Stream websites like Twitch, they automatically archive matches for you, so you won't even have to put it on YouTube, but it's still good to put on YouTube. Video and photo taking device. Everyone has this these days. It's called a smartphone. If you don't have one, someone in your team member probably does, and it's like a cheap substitute for like a camcorder or what is it? Camera, right? Yeah. And another thing you're gonna need is strategy. Okay, how are you gonna tackle this project, right? How are you gonna tackle this goal that you have, this desire that you want, right? And if you're a business major, you don't really have to look at this. Or if you have common sense, you could skip the slide. But yeah, some things that you're gonna need is a core goal or purpose, right? So it's more like why are you doing this? We talked about this earlier in this video. So there's visions and missions statements. Okay, vision statement. It's more like a vision, right? An example for a vision statement for VTR was to connect one local player with another. It's just very simple. Like that's what our core desire was. Like, I want to connect this player with this player, and they could be like, hey, let's play, and they play, you know. And yeah, our long-term goal, we had a lot of long-term goals. It was to have like a 32-man bracket, or to be the main organization for Tekken, stuff like that, you know. And these long-term goals, these mission statements, they are going to be objective and measurable, something that you could achieve. Not too difficult, not too easy, stuff like that. And short-term goals, they're like steps where you could reach that long-term goal. An example for VATR is like, let's say we wanted a 32-man bracket. How are we going to do that? We were going to host tournaments. We're going to host regular tournaments, have some type of gimmick, differentiation. Yeah, so differentiation is like something, what's going to differentiate you and another tournament organizer, right? Let's say you're here. Let's say another tournament organizer is here. It's like 3-hour drive apart, right? What's going to make the people in between want to go to your tournament as opposed to their tournament, you know? And VATR, we had a couple gimmicks. At the beginning, we had free venue fee, like no venue fee. So it gives more incentives to players to come out. We also had this policy where free pizza and free drinks every tournament, unless there were less than 16 entrants, and that only happened like 1 or 2 times. And yeah, we usually got that from the venue fee, you know, like we charged $5 venue fee and then bought all the players drinks and pizza, stuff like that. Yeah, so it's like a gimmick. Another gimmick is, thanks to the venue that we had, there was a projector, so the crowds could see like the final matches, and it'd be pretty hype. And it's pretty common now. But yeah, that was one. Another good gimmick, really good one, towards the end of our lifespan of hosting tournaments was thanks to New Jersey player called Battle Jitney. He brought the setup, like a head-to-head setup, so it's more like the arcade feel, and it was pretty tight. It was called the Battle Station, because Battle Jitney, that was his name, right? Yeah, so there's different ways you could differentiate it. You could make it be like, if this is the first time you came to our tournament, it's free. You don't have to pay anything, stuff like that. Team decision making. You're gonna want to decide, everyone agrees on the same thing, or this one person is the leader, and then we'll all just follow you. Another thing is you gotta know your audience and community, and the reason is there's supply and demand. Okay, you're the supplier. Okay, and your gamers are your customers, obviously, and then you're gonna want to know who they are, what type of lifestyle they are, what type of gamer they are, what type of Tekken player they are, because there's different types of Tekken players, especially in Tekken Tag 2. So there's an online player, there's casual only player because they don't want to pay any money to go to the tournament that they know they're going to lose. There's a tournament player. There are players that think that they're good, but then they suck a lot, stuff like that. And these are important to know because these different types of players, they have different desires, they have different demand, like what they want. So some players, they might just want to have fun. Some players, they want money from tournaments to win money because they're good enough, right? Some players, they want money matches, trash bag matches. Some players, they want to make friends. Some players, they want to be famous. There's different ways you can attend to their needs, and you're the supplier, so you provide them their demand. Basically, like, if they want money, increase the venue fee. Increase the tournament entry fee. But then there's like the effect where if it's higher, if your entry fee is higher, less players are going to come out. Mainly because there's less good players, and only good players are going to want to go to a high tournament entry fee. It's just common sense. Think about it. It'll make sense. If a player wants to become famous, you could record matches in your tournaments and upload them on your website that you have, or on YouTube, front page, bam, stuff like that. You could do player interviews, get them more like well known in the community. It's pretty cool because you get interviewed, they're like, oh snap, I got interviewed, I'm on the front page, let me send a link to one of my friends, a couple of my friends that plays Tekken also, and it's going to be pretty tight, and their friends are going to look at the website and be like, man, that looks pretty legit, maybe I'll want to go next time, stuff like that. So know your gamers very well. Also, one big thing you want to know is if they have money or not. If they don't have money, your venue fee better be really, really low. Okay. Advertisement, right? How are you going to advertise? There's many ways you can advertise. There's Facebook, there's tekkenzaibatsu.com, there is YouTube, and of course your website that you're going to have. So many different ways you can advertise. And another thing you're going to want to think about strategy is venue and entry fee. Okay, I'm just going to say it. A lot of gamers are poor. They're either college students, high school students, or they are post-college, but they don't have money, okay? It's not like if you have money, okay? If you have money, you're not going to be playing video games. You're going to go and actually do more fun stuff if you have money, right? Of course, even if you have money, gaming's fun. You do it for fun. And those players, it doesn't really matter how much the venue fee is. But majority of the gamers, not just Tekken players, but majority of the gamers in general, they don't really have a lot of spending money. So it's very important to have the right amount of venue and entry fee. Next, venue. You want the venue to be cheap or free. Okay, you can get, because the lower your cost is to have the tournament, the lower you could charge players, and the lower you could charge players, the higher chance more players are going to come, because it costs less for them, you know. And you want this venue to be public, like I mentioned earlier. You don't want it at some player's house. That's random. Okay, and also you want free parking. Some tournaments, some tournaments, the parking's not free because it's like at a hotel and it costs like 12 to 18 bucks a day to park there, and that's pretty ridiculous. So for local Tekken scene, find a good spot where there's free parking and free venue if you can. You want this venue to be internet ready, in case you want to host tournament, in case you want to record and stream the matches and stuff like that. So you want internet, high-speed internet, right? And you want this venue to be easily accessible. And all these things, VATR used a university called George Mason University in Virginia. Great university. You should go. I graduated from there. Okay. It's easily accessible. It's metro accessible. There's buses. There's a bus for even the airplane, like our nearest airport. There are buses, bus shuttles, Oh, there's an image here. Okay, there's an image there, I guess, yeah. Of the map, sky view of the campus. So lot A, those are free parking, and JC is where the entry or the venue is. I don't know what all these other random markings is. I forgot. It's an old picture, but yeah. So their suggestion is like a small gaming store, small comic book store. They're usually friendly because they have the same demographics of customers. One player in Nova, he is the godfather of gaming in Northern Virginia. His name is Jaguar. You might know him, you might not, whatever. But yeah, he hosts some events at this small gaming store called Starland. And it's doing pretty well. A lot of people go out. If you live in Nova, you should check it out. And these small stores, they're more likely to allow you to host a tournament at their place, mainly because they're less corporate. Yeah. Oh, you know what's crazy? One venue that you could host tournaments is Sony store at your nearest mall. I don't know. I mean, not all Sony stores, but specifically for Northern Virginia, VATR, we hosted tournaments. I think 2 or 3 tournaments in the Sony store in Tyson's Corner. They were surprisingly very friendly, and it's mainly because the tournaments that we ran, it was going to be hosted on the PlayStation, so it's good for them also. At first I thought they were going to say no because Sony's pretty corporate, but they're trying to expand. They're trying to attend to like customer demands and what the customer wants, and that's probably why they were such a huge success in E3. Okay, I digress. Anyways, so yeah, that's another option. And you also want an online presence. Look at all these icons that I put up. There's Ustream, there's Twitch, there's Facebook, there's YouTube, and there's .com. That .com is that.com. But that .com is like the website that you're gonna have for your group, your organization. Example, VATekkenRage.com. That website doesn't exist anymore because we're not hosting tournaments anymore. So we're not gonna keep it up. We're not gonna pay to keep it up, right? So yeah, you want the website to be user-friendly, simple, and legit, like professional looking. Because this is mainly for the players that, I don't know if I said this or not, but it's more for the players that you don't know that exist, but that are in the area. because let's say they're an online player and then they view Tekken matches still on YouTube, right? They're online players, and then they see these matches at tournaments, and they're like, "Man, I could beat that guy. Like, man, I could do this. Let me go to a tournament, right?" And then they could just Google like tournaments in Virginia for VTR, right? Tournaments in Virginia, and then bam, your website comes up, and then they're like, "Oh snap! There's a group, there's a site, and they host tournaments." And they look at it, you know. They see their posts and pictures and videos of past tournaments. You know, it's at a public venue. Things look pretty legit, and the venue fee isn't too high. They're like, yeah, I'll check it out. They contact someone from the website, or they just go to the tournament, and you know, they have a good time. They tell other online gamers, and it just like grows like that, right? You also want a Facebook group, which is pretty important, especially if you're going to continually host tournaments, mainly because it's like a place where it builds like a sense of community, like very close-knit community, and that's centered around Tekken, and specifically your tournaments. And you know, they could put up pictures that they themselves took, or they could put up videos that they recorded, like salty money matches, trash bag matches, and then everyone could be like, ha ha ha, like, oh, let me comment on this. You know, they could be like, hey, let's play online, and then, or they could be like, hey, let's play offline. You know, basically connecting one player to another locally. It's very important, right? Another online presence is YouTube channel. It's common sense. You know, some players, they watch a lot of videos, surprisingly, and they're just online players, and they watch a lot of matches on YouTube, and you know, it's a good way. Oh, another online presence is Twitch and Ustream account. This mainly if you're streaming, and yeah. Another thing that I didn't put in that I just remembered was your online scene on PSN or Xbox Live. Like you could have an account made for your group specifically. So example, like I can make an account called VA Tekken Rage and just play online, and then like if people see it and they're like, VA, does he mean Virginia? And they might message me and say, hey, are you from Virginia? I'll be like, yeah, I'm from Virginia. You should come out to these offline tournaments. And they're like, okay, stuff like that. Actually, that's one way a Tekken player called Sin Drummer came to play offline tournaments. You know, it was pretty tight. Another way is WTF.tekken.com. It's a great service that Namco is providing us. Basically, a way you can make clans or teams, and you could set up a team for your local tournaments. Example, VA Tekken Rage. Okay, yeah. So there's many ways to have an online presence, and again, this like all these things, it just builds into like a good tournament. Like you get it. Okay, this is the end. Questions? Leave a comment below. Yeah, hope you guys liked the video, and that's it.